You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Well, guys, listen to this. You mess with the bull, you get the horns. Joe Walsh is finding that it does not pay to be a never-Trumper in Trump's America. He has apparently lost his radio show after announcing that he is challenging President Trump for the Republican nomination for president. Good luck, Joe. Good luck. Not going to happen, but it's a valiant effort nonetheless. Plus, he has apologized for posting racist tweets. He was on CNN, and he noted that he just lost his national radio show. So that's gone, he said, but I figured that might happen. He was asked why, and he said, I don't know why. I just got a notice before I came into the studio. I'm running for president. I oppose this president. Most of my listeners support the president. It's not an easy thing to do to be in conservative talk radio and oppose this president. He said that up to 90% of his audience supports President Trump. So why are you running against him, Joe? Doesn't that tell you something? Doesn't that tell you that President Trump is doing a good job? If 90% of your own listeners support the job that President Trump is doing, no more radio show, but that's okay. I'm going to campaign full time. This was a difficult thing to do, yes, but I believe it's urgent because this president is a danger. We cannot let him get elected for another 4 years. Well, why, Joe? Is that because you'll have nothing good to talk about if he gets elected? America is going to continue to prosper and you won't have anything to be upset about other than President Trump? Actually, I think this is probably good for your business, Joe. Why do you think your radio station fired you? Because they like President Trump too. They know that President Trump is doing a good job. Now, beyond that, Joe also admitted to making some inflammatory racist comments on his Twitter profile. Now, in 2014, Walsh wrote, "It appears I can say Redskins," which is supposedly offensive, but when I say other words, they hit a commercial. If Redskins is just like the N-word, why can I say Redskins on the air without being dumped out into a commercial? Found out if I say Redskins or Cracker or Redneck Bible Thumper, I could stay on, but if I say the N-word or the S-word, they cut me off. We're going to get into some more news after a brief word from my sponsor. Every day, we see warning signs that this country is inching closer and closer to, dare I say it, civil war. Violent protests by radical leftists, armed attacks on ICE facilities, police officers heckled and pelted while executing arrests, even elected members of Congress crashing political events, and the media justifies or ignores it. Unless we change course, the result is inevitable. And though civil war is far from guaranteed, we are in a cycle of violent weather that is unmistakable. Earthquakes, hurricanes, and more. Almost every American is at risk in some form. And that's why I prepare with My Patriot Supply. They've revolutionized preparedness with an industry-leading line of food storage, water filtration, and other products that you will need at some point. And right now, you can save 50% on a 2-week emergency food kit. These 2-week food kits include breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and they last up to 25 years in storage. Don't ignore the writing on the wall. Give yourself peace of mind and save 50% off at my special website, preparewithredpill78.com. That's preparewithredpill78.com. All right, guys, it is happening. A confidant of James Comey has sounded the alarm on Andrew McCabe. Expect him to be indicted any day. Comey confidant Benjamin Witz said in a Lawfare blog post on Tuesday that he expects former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe to be indicted any day now. Benjamin Witz is a resistance lawyer and James Comey's friend who runs the Lawfare Group. Witz wrote in a blog post Tuesday that he was shocked to find out federal prosecutors were in the final stages of deciding whether to indict McCabe on charges he lied to federal investigators, referring to the New York Times bombshell released on Monday. The potential indictment of McCabe stems from the Inspector General's findings that the FBI official lied to federal investigators, or as they put it in the Inspector General report, lacked candor. McCabe was criminally referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution in the spring of 2018, and they are finally getting around to maybe indicting him. The process has been dragged out because of internal deliberations, and the case is taking so long that the term expired for the grand jury evidence. One of the lead prosecutors on the case has since left the DOJ out of frustration, according to the New York Times. The New York Times reported that McCabe's lawyers met with DAG Jeffrey Rosen, who is involved in the decision whether to prosecute the former FBI official. Now, from the New York Times, the failing New York Times. It says in 2 meetings last week, Mr. McCabe's lawyers met with the Deputy Attorney General, Jeffrey Rosen, who's expected to be involved in the decision about whether to prosecute, and for more than an hour with the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jesse K. Liu, according to a person familiar with the meetings. The person would not detail the discussions, but defense lawyers typically meet with top law enforcement officials to try to persuade them not to indict their client if they failed to get line prosecutors to drop the case. Mr. Witz says these meetings only take place when an indictment is imminent. Let me translate this paragraph for you. Such meetings generally take place when indictment is imminent. They happen when the government plans to bring charges. You should thus expect charges against McCabe to be forthcoming any day. And if such charges don't happen, that doesn't mean they weren't planned, but rather that some extrinsic event has intervened. Mr. Witz defended McCabe and said his conduct wasn't criminal, but that the U.S. Attorney's Office may have evidence against McCabe that is not yet available to the public. Andrew McCabe, who is part of the attempted coup to remove President Trump from the White House, was fired in March of 2018 by then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the sleeper agent. Shortly after McCabe was fired, Inspector General Michael Horowitz released a scathing report on the FBI official and accused him of lacking candor, lying to federal agents several times, including under oath. McCabe lied about authorizing disclosure to a Wall Street Journal reporter in October 2016 for a story about the investigation into the Clinton Foundation. McCabe lying about authorizing disclosure to a Wall Street Journal is nothing compared to the actions he took to prevent Trump from winning the 2016 election and his role in the attempted coup to remove our president. It is important to note that Andrew McCabe, along with Rosenstein, signed the June 2017 FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page. McCabe was just hired by fake news CNN, so if he does get indicted, his new employer will surely defend him and spin the narrative in his favor. And then at the bottom, we have a embedded tweet from Benjamin Witz, which includes that blog post. Guys, I think this is great news. I've been saying it for a long time. There is no way that McCabe is going to escape this unscathed. He will be indicted, and I tend to think that he was correct in his assertion that perhaps there is more information that the U.S. attorneys and the DOJ have not made public. McCabe has committed many, many crimes behind the scenes. He was involved in nothing short of a coup to remove a duly elected president from the United States of America. President Trump, the greatest president that we have ever known here, the greatest man to walk into Washington, D.C., perhaps the only honest man left in Washington, D.C. And now he's got help in the form of Bill Barr at the DOJ and I would say DAG Jeffrey Rosen. Good job, guys. Let's see what it looks like when a former deputy director of the FBI gets indicted for perjury. All right, like I said yesterday, you guys, more news coming out of the Overstock CEO story. This is an exclusive at the Gateway Pundit. It says Mueller gang was caught in a major lie. They withheld evidence from an innocent Russian woman, and then they incarcerated her. Right here is Byrne, and that is Maria Butina, his once upon a time girlfriend and would-be Russian spy as far as Mueller and the gang are concerned. But they sent up an innocent woman, and then they lied about it by withholding pertinent information. I believe that is called a Brady violation. Today, this woman sits in prison when exculpatory evidence withheld by the Mueller gang would have exonerated her. On July 18th, 2018, the failing New York Times reported the following in an article entitled Maria Butina, Suspected Secret Agent, Used Sex in Covert Plan, Prosecutors Say. Now, from the failing New York Times, Maria Butina was sentenced to 18 months in prison after pleading guilty to conspiring to act as a foreign agent, admitting that she was part of a Russian effort to influence U.S. politics. But she was hardly a shadowy figure. Here's what her online profile revealed. For 4 years, a Russian accused of being a covert agent pursued a brazen effort to infiltrate conservative circles and influence powerful Republicans while she was secretly in contact with Russian intelligence operatives, a senior Russian official, and a billionaire oligarch close to the Kremlin whom she called her funder, federal prosecutors said on Wednesday. This, too, was all a lie and a setup. After Overstock CEO Patrick Byrne's latest public revelations about his relationship with Maria Butina, internet sleuth Rosie Memos went back to examine the pleadings in the Maria Butina case. A link to the document used by Rosie Memos is attached here, but Rosie says, Today isn't the first time Patrick Byrne has told his story. He reached out to Butina's lawyers last month, and it paints a more complete picture. This letter to the Justice Department and OPR was sent July 25th, and it's alarming if true. Let's go ahead and take a look at this letter. All right, so this says, Dear Messrs. Durham, Horowitz, and Amundsen, as you may know, I in this law office represented Maria Butina, the Russian national who was arrested and indicted last year and pled guilty this spring to one count of conspiracy in the above referenced case. I recently learned of new information that concerns this matter, and I write because this new material suggests possible misconduct on the part of federal agents or assistant attorneys who investigated and prosecuted Maria Butina. While her case was handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., and not the special counsel, and thus may be an OPR matter, it appears that some of the issues raised by the information I received relate to FBI counterintelligence operations with respect to Russia leading up to the 2016 election, and thus may fall within the scope of matters being investigated by Mr. Durham and Horowitz. Very interesting. Rosie continues, for background, the judge told DOJ they had to disclose Brady material to her lawyers. They claimed there was none. Let's take a look at that. And it says, for background, subsequent to Maria's arrest and indictment in July 2018, District Judge... For background, subsequent to Maria's arrest and indictment in July 2018, District Judge Tanya Chutkin emphasized the government's obligation to promptly provide Brady material to the defense. The court says, all right, Mr. Bradley? Oh, Mr. Saunders, I know I don't have to tell you, but I will anyway. This court expects the government to take its obligations under Brady very seriously. If there is any information that is exculpatory to the defendant, that material must be provided as quickly as possible, and that obligation is ongoing for the entire time this case is before me. So I don't want there to be any delay. If there is any Brady material, that Brady material must be turned over as quickly as possible. And Mr. Saunders replies, understood, Your Honor. Well, looks like he didn't understand because he did withhold that Brady information, that exculpatory evidence. Now, Butina's lawyers are saying here that Butina was set up by dangles. Dangles are, for instance, the roles that Stefan Halper and the Australian ambassador Downer, etc., played in Operation Russian Collusion. In actions with George Papadopoulos, an entrapment operation basically is what it is. Mueller and Weissman withheld information in the Enron-related court cases in the early 2000s, so they must have felt that they could do it again. Butina's lawyers were asking the Mueller team to present any evidence regarding these dangles through a process called Brady material, which basically means if you have any exonerating evidence, now is the time to cough it up and show it to the court. It's a really big no-no if some exists and the government fails to provide it. Butina's lawyers specifically mentioned Patrick Byrne as the dangle. Rosie continues, this is important because her lawyers argued she was baited by an intel source, and they even argued it was Byrne because he was a government informant, and that was flatly denied. Let's take a look at that. By email, letter, phone, and in person, the defense repeatedly pressed the government for any Brady material and was not provided any. In particular, we suggested to the government a strong suspicion that counterintelligence or other FBI investigators used confidential informants in their investigation of Maria, and that information provided by such witnesses to the government might be relevant to guilt or sentencing. Moreover, we suggested that the government had presented Maria with one or more dangles, that is, orchestrated opportunities to provide the government information unwittingly while being observed. In writing, the government denied the existence of any such Brady material. Orally during debrief sessions with Maria, I directly told the government that I believed Patrick Byrne, chief executive of Overstock.com, who was a sporadic relationship with Maria over a period of years prior to her arrest, was a government informant. My speculation was flatly denied. My associate, Alfred Carey, made similar assertions in a separate debrief that he covered and was also rebuffed. Now, Byrne had a non-standard agreement with the FBI and assisted the government by kindling a manipulative romantic relationship with her, all under instruction from the highest levels of the DOJ. Mr. Byrne has now contacted me and has confirmed that he indeed had a non-standard arrangement with the FBI for many years, and that beginning in 2015 through Maria's arrest, he communicated and assisted government agents with their investigation of Maria. During this time, he stated he acted at the direction of the government and federal agents by, at their instruction, kindling a manipulative romantic relationship with her. He also told me that some of the details he provided the government regarding Maria in response was exculpatory. Look at that. The government manipulating people and their emotions in order to try to get Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, or any other politicians that they could control. The government's dangle, Patrick Byrne, did not believe that Butina was a spy. Rosie continues, should be noted, Byrne genuinely didn't believe Butina was a spy. He reported meeting her in 2015 because of his security clearance, and the FBI told him that she was fine and had already been looked into. He continued to inform of her activities, and the government never stopped her, yet she's been charged now with being a national security threat. The two of them lost touch, and it was the FBI in 2016 that told Byrne to reconnect. Let's look at that. Byrne continued communicating with the government about his contacts with Maria. Byrne evidently informed the government of many meetings with political and other figures that Maria had and mentioned to him, often in advance of the meetings themselves. The government did not intervene or try to stop any meetings, nor did they express any concern. This undercuts the government's position at sentencing that Maria's activities involved collection of information that could be of substantial intelligence value to the Russian government, or pose a serious potential to U.S. harm, a foreign policy, interests, and national security, as those same activities were observed and permitted for many years. At some point prior to the 2016 election, when Byrne's contact with Maria diminished or ceased, the government asked and encouraged him to renew contact with her, and he did so, continuing to inform the government of her activities. Byrne states he was informed by government agents that his pursuit and involvement with Maria and concomitant surveillance of her was requested and directed from the highest levels of the FBI and the intelligence community. That would be Peter Strzok. The question is, why is Byrne coming forward now? It's doubtful that he is feeling remorse. He sounded a bit crazy when he was on Fox News. Perhaps he is concerned about being indicted himself. Maybe he just wanted to use this news to suggest that Hillary was spied on as well. That statement that Byrne made was quite hard to swallow. Now, the more Byrne observed, the more he was convinced she was harmless. He said as much, so why is he coming forward now? He claims remorse and doesn't realize how awful it would be, but he feared for his business, and 1 month later, we see he was right to be fearful. As time passed, Byrne became more and more convinced that Maria was what she said she was, an inquisitive student in favor of better U.S.-Russia relations, and not an agent of the Russian government or someone involved in espionage or illegal activities. He states he conveyed these thoughts and the corroborating facts and observations about Maria to the government. Subsequent to Maria's arrest, incarceration, plea, and sentencing, Byrne has felt remorse for the role he played in Maria's situation. In view of recent reports of other alleged government misconduct, he has also expressed a fear that political motives may have influenced the government's handling of Maria's case. His recollection of certain conversations with government agents would appear to validate his concern. So now Butina sits in a jail cell. Remember, this girl was held in solitary, and her defense lawyer has no jurisdiction, which must be maddening because he was right. Why would Byrne make this up? And finally, from the lawyer, as defense counsel, I admittedly have limited visibility into the handling of Maria's case and cannot independently verify everything I've been told short of litigation. This is why I write the three of you, so that the matter can be investigated appropriately and hopefully expeditiously, as Maria is incarcerated and scheduled to be deported upon completion of her sentence, which should be in October. Very, very, very damaging information on the government. Now, the Mueller gang denied the existence of any Brady material in this case. This was a material, significant, and outright lie. Mueller and the deep state don't care about the fact that a young woman was set up, thrown in solitary confinement, or thrown in prison. For the corrupt, criminal, and liberal deep state, the end justifies the means. You guys, I told you this Patrick Byrne situation was going to bear some more bitter fruit, and here we have it. Quite obviously, the government worked to set up this innocent Russian woman only because she was Russian and only because it fit their narrative of the fact that Russians were trying to influence the U.S. election. Now, with regard to Patrick Byrne's statement about Hillary Clinton being blackmailed, personally, I think that it makes some sense, just because I think that the FBI wants to remain top dog. And if they have blackmail material on Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, or Hillary Clinton, it is going to help them get their business taken care of, whoever gets into office, whether it be a Democrat or a Republican. But this is a horrible situation, and I feel awful for Maria Butina. She was just lambasted in the press, and they have treated her terribly. I really hope that Durham and Huber and the DOJ do something about this, because this needs to be looked into. Right now, an innocent woman is rotting in prison, and she will find herself deported to Russia. This is not the type of person that we need to have deported from America. She was doing good work, in my opinion. Well, guys, I just had to throw this one in at the last moment. Thank you, Methods, for bringing us this wonderful information. Federal agents have raided the home of United Auto Workers President Gary Jones on Wednesday. Let's take a look at the article. Well, in Detroit, federal agents have raided the home of United Auto Workers President Gary Jones on Wednesday as the Justice Department expands its probe of corruption into the union's top ranks, while Detroit automakers renegotiate labor contracts for 158,000 employees. Kevin Telepo, a neighbor, said he noticed FBI and IRS agents searching the property at about 8:30 a.m. The agents removed a bunch of boxes from the house and were going through a bunch of cash in the garage. Federal agents were still at Jones's home in suburban Detroit around noon. Telepo said there were about a dozen cars on the street, including a large black van that remained in front of the house by early afternoon. There was also a black Chevrolet Suburban with an employee tag next to the driveway for the GM UAW Center for Human Resources Training Center, which is a target of the federal investigation. It is shocking to see this happening close to home. Federal officials did not immediately reply to CNBC's request for comment, and Telepo, who was unaware of Jones was the president of the UAW, described the suburban Detroit subdivision as quiet, kid, and family-friendly. He said Jones primarily kept to himself. Well, guys, the swamp is truly being drained. We have known for many, many years that the UAW is a very corrupt organization, and they are aligned with the Democrats. This is wonderful news. Donald Trump is not only draining the swamp in Washington, but also in Detroit as well. Well, guys, it looks like Pelosi and Nadler have been exposed. A Dem court filing reveals that the Trump impeachment probe began before Mueller submitted his report, and that contradicts Nadler and Pelosi's previous claims. The Democrat-led House Judiciary Committee said Monday in a court filing that they have been conducting an impeachment investigation of President Trump since before Robert Mueller even submitted his report, and that contradicts previous statements made by Nadler and Pelosi. According to Monday's filing, the Democrats were already marching forward with impeachment 1 week before Pelosi stated in a WAPO interview that impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country. Recall, House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler just stated a few weeks ago that formal impeachment proceedings were taking place during an appearance on CNN, Crap News Network. Fox News pointed out that Nadler said in May during a WNYC radio appearance that there certainly is justification for Congress to begin impeachment proceedings against Trump, but that it was critical that the American public agree before launching the process. We're going to have the investigation, Nadler said in response to a question from a caller, adding that he was going to talk to colleagues about the possibility of a formal impeachment inquiry. All the while, his committee was already secretly moving forward with that impeachment inquiry. In other words, Nadler and Pelosi were lying to the public while secretly conducting their impeachment probe into President Trump. What a shocker. Could have told you that. Now, from Fox News, Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee suggested in a court filing Monday that they have been carrying out an impeachment investigation of President Trump since before Robert Mueller's report was even submitted, which appears to contradict previous statements by committee chairman Representative Gerald Nadler, Democrat New York, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California. Nadler first claimed earlier this month that formal impeachment proceedings were underway when he filed a petition to get secret grand jury information from the Mueller report. But Monday's filing in a separate case looking to compel testimony from former White House counsel Don McGahn, suggested it had already started on March 4th. That was weeks before Mueller sent his report to Attorney General Bill Barr on March 22nd. On March 4th, 2019, the Judiciary Committee opened an investigation into threats to the rule of law, encompassing alleged obstruction of justice, public corruption, and other abuses of power by President Trump, his associates, and members of his administration. The filing says, adding that one critical purpose of the committee's investigation is to determine whether to recommend articles of impeachment against the president. In a letter written to Nadler obtained by Fox News, ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee Doug Collins, Republican Georgia, told Nadler that he is breaking the rules of the House. It is beyond the scope of your authority, absent a vote of the full House, to prohibit other members of the House from reviewing any materials in possession of the committee, Collins wrote, also pointing out that Nadler never received House authorization to conduct any formal impeachment inquiry. Without these formal steps, the committee cannot possibly be conducting a formal impeachment inquiry as you claim it is, Collins said. The House previously killed the impeachment resolution brought to the floor by Representative Green, so Nadler is circumventing the House by conducting his own impeachment investigation. Absolutely incredible. In their Monday court filing, the Democrats claimed that their authority for conducting their investigation is derived from their constitutional powers. Pursuant to its Article 1 powers, the Judiciary Committee is investigating presidential misconduct, the motion says. Its investigation is critical to its determination whether to recommend articles of impeachment against the president and will also inform its legislative and oversight functions. A federal judge recently took some wind out of Nadler's impeachment sail, ruling against the House Dems on linking the McGahn and Mueller cases. Nadler attempted to have the same judge assigned to Mueller's case also assigned to their court fight to get testimony from former White House counsel Don McGahn. U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell of the District of Columbia, an Obama appointee, recently denied Nadler and wrote in an 11-page memorandum that the connections between the two cases are too superficial and attenuated to meet the rigors for designating the cases as related. Ouch. Oof. Gerald Nadler, take a seat. Can you guys believe this crap? I guess I can when it comes down to it, because lying to the American public is the way of the Democrats. They've been doing it for decades, and now it is no different. In fact, it has only gotten worse in recent years, ever since President Trump took office. Before President Trump took office, their modus operandi was lie, lie, lie. They have to lie because that's the only way that they can get anybody to listen. If they talk about the issues, if they talk about what's actually going on in America, then all of their constituents would vote for President Trump. God bless President Trump, guys, and we'll see Nadler and Pelosi in court. All right, and a shocking display from yesterday. African migrants on the way to the U.S. are fighting the Mexican police, the federales, in a wild border brawl in Tapachula. And they're called Pelosi's Angels. Remember, when watching this, Democrats believe that no person is illegal. African migrants traveling to the United States attacked Mexican military police near the southern U.S. border in Tapachula. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video. Not sending their best indeed. Oh my goodness, these people. This is who is trying to stream across the border, and I will bet you that there is more than one person there who has been exposed to the Ebola virus. Now, from the video, military police officers clash with migrants from Africa, Haiti, and other countries during a protest in front of an immigration center in Tapachula, Mexico. They are demanding free transit through the country to reach the United States. That was from yesterday, August 27th. Guys, thank God for President Trump. Thank God that he has gotten to the Mexican government and they are actually doing something about this, because before they were just allowing these people to flow freely across the border. And thank God for President Trump for the work that he has done to get the border wall built. I just read the other day that an additional 89 miles of border wall have been completed, and our border is stronger and more secure than ever before. We're going to have to continue to watch the story. Hopefully the federales are strong enough to continue to hold these people back, because they definitely were not taking no for an answer. And finally, more bad news for Omar from Minnesota. Apparently, someone is reporting that her husband dumped her for Ilhan Omar. She is a D.C. mom, and she has filed for divorce from her husband. Members of the squad are all over the headlines of late, and it's not great. Well, it's not great for the Democrats. In the latest story, a mother from Washington, D.C. says her political consultant husband left her for Representative Ilhan Omar, according to a divorce filing obtained by the New York Post. Dr. Beth Jordan Minot says her cheating spouse, Tim Minot, told her in April that he was having an affair with the Somali-born U.S. representative, and that he even made a shocking declaration of love for the Minnesota congresswoman before he ditched his wife, and that's alleged in a filing submitted in D.C. Superior Court on Tuesday. The physician, 55, and her 38-year-old husband, who has worked for lefty Democrats such as Omar and her Minnesota predecessor, Keith Ellison, have a 13-year-old son together. The parties physically separated on or about April 7, 2019, when defendant told plaintiff that he was romantically involved with and in love with another woman, Ilhan Omar, the court papers say. Here's something even more interesting. The 37-year-old congresswoman and mom of 3 paid Tim Minot and his E Street group approximately $230,000 through her campaign since 2018 for fundraising consulting, digital communications, internet advertising, and travel expenses. Meanwhile, another member of the squad, which is made up of course, Representative Occasional Cortex, Representative Omar of Minnesota, and Representative Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, and Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, also found herself in the headlines. Conservative activist Laura Loomer has filed a $2 million lawsuit against Rashida Tlaib over an alleged assault and battery that took place at a campaign event. Loomer claims that the Michigan Democrat assaulted her when she violently grabbed her phone at an event for Omar last August. Now, keep in mind, guys, Omar also recently filed for divorce from her husband, and I gotta say, I think we now know the reason why. It looks like homewrecker Omar is out there destroying families in D.C., not just destroying the state of Minnesota. Terrible, terrible news for the people of Minnesota, the people of Washington, D.C. Terrible news for America as long as she remains in office. But good thing is that we are marginalizing her, and I don't think that she's going to be elected for a second term when it comes down to it, because of all of her ethics violations and the illegal immigration that she participated in when she married her own brother to get him citizenship here in the United States. All right, guys, that is all that I have for you today. I want to thank everyone for joining me. As always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.